Good evening. My name is Vanessa Bright, and I will be speaking on the topic, Stop the Revolving Door to Prison. Imagine if you had paid your debt to society, you come home, you have no job, you have no money, and you have no place to live. What would you do? What would you do to survive? Would you commit a crime? In 2018, 500 inmates returned to Anne Arundel County to the communities to which they lived. Every one of those individuals will impact their community either positively or negatively. Former inmates are often confronted with one reentry challenge after another, everything from securing housing to setting up substance abuse treatment to finding a job. Any setback in any of these could lead to a relapse and a return to prison, what analysts call recidivism. Currently in Anne Arundel County, the recidivism rate is 41%. In 2017, Maryland implemented the Justice Reinvestment Act, and that did put Maryland on a path to a fairer criminal justice system by changing the sentencing guidelines and strict drug policies that led to the mass incarceration, particularly of people of color. Interestingly enough, in 2019, when we have the heroin and fentanyl epidemic, it's being treated differently. There's a call for treatment instead of incarceration. As an educator in the criminal justice system, I teach personal finance and financial literacy. I went in with a lot of preconceived notions. I thought that people got an education, I felt they received training, and they were really rehabilitated. But what I learned is that prison is a very closed system, and we don't know what we don't see. So it was not until I was in there that I learned that we are not preparing people for return to their communities. 95% of the people that are incarcerated will return home. So what we do to them, the trauma that's inflicted upon them from overzealous officers or other inmates, and what we don't do for them by not training them will come back to their communities. For a moment, I want to take you into the life of a returning citizen. You return home with no savings because you made less than minimum wage. There was no opportunity to mend broken relationships, so now you're living in a homeless shelter. You were failed by the school system. You had so you went in with limited skills, limited education, and you come home the same way. You must apply for a job online, but you were not allowed to use the internet in prison, and you lack computer skills. You don't have a phone on which a potential employer could call you. So you somehow get offered a job, but you live in Anne Arundel County, and we know the public transportation system is very limited, so how are you going to get to work on time? My experience teaching inmates over the last 5 years allowed me to see and to hear and understand that they are just ill-equipped. Preparation for reentry should begin the day after they are incarcerated. But yet, if we do provide it, we wait till they're almost about to be released to help prepare them to come home. Unfortunately, it could take years to make the legislative changes that are needed to overhaul this system and make it an equitable system. But President Obama said something. He said, change will not come if we wait for some other person or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. So I am going to open a nonprofit called Maryland Reentry Resource Center. It's going to be located in Anne Arundel County. The center is going to be devoted to empowering inmates and the formerly incarcerated with the skills they need to be thriving citizens. We're going to do this through case management, mentorship, job placement, and training. But we need your help. We need people that are willing to be mentors to take people into new social networks. We need people that will give of their time and provide a workshop or training. We also need employers that are going to be willing to give somebody a second chance. It is then that we will have success stories like Chris Wilson, who lives in Baltimore. You may have heard of him recently because he's written a book called The Master Plan. He's also a serial entrepreneur and a very successful artist. Nicole Hanston, she runs an organization called Out for Justice, which is an advocate for criminal justice reform. Or you may know Celebrity Jeff, who used to cook cocaine and now cooks five-star cuisine. In closing, I'm reminded of a story told by somebody you probably all know. He's from Annapolis, and in Annapolis, he's called the convener. His name is Carl Snowden. Recently, I heard him tell a story about Michael Jordan, and the story goes like this. He said once Michael Jordan was interviewed, and the interviewer asked him if he thought he was the greatest basketball player of all times. And to the interviewer's surprise, Michael Jordan, who's not very modest, said that he was not. His reason for saying that was that Michael said he knew other people that could outplay him in basketball, people in his own neighborhood. But what he had that they didn't have was an opportunity. So I want to leave you with this. Remember, we all need an opportunity for greatness. Some of us need a second chance at it. Thank you.